Happy New Year. Is it too late into January to say that? Probably.
I think
There's a
this is
whole,
the end. It's 2 weeks, right? You have
I was
two
gonna say,
weeks.
there's a whole Curb Your Enthusiasm episode on when is that cut off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to Kelly and I are both in the city of Pittsburgh, and there's a really popular morning radio show called like the Kiss Morning Freak Show, and it was like January 6th or something. He was going on a whole rant about how it's not Happy New Year anymore. We're in 2026, but since it's the first SEO juice of the year, it feels appropriate.
Yeah.
We do have a boatload of content to get through. So I am going to go ahead and dive right in. For those of you, if this is your first time joining us today, first off, let us know in the chat because welcome. Happy to have you here. My name is Casey McBride. I am SOCi Senior Director of Strategic Consulting. I have worked in digital marketing for over like 11 years at this point. Been at SOCi for about 5, and I have the privilege of managing these two lovely folks in the world of both social media and SEO, and really just helping our customers learn what's what and how to improve their strategies in organic marketing. I'll let these two introduce themselves.
I'm Mike Snow, local SEO enablement manager, and as I like to joke, SEO evangelist because SEO never ends. It's why we have these things. Been with SOCi for about 6 years now. I can't believe I thought it was about 5, but it was more. I did
Five
the
and a
math the
half.
other day.
Oh, well, you're longer than me. Yeah.
So, and I'll keep things short. It's just happy to have you all here. We love that you come back every week, and for those that are new, welcome.
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Kelly Satino. I do the same things that Mike does on the social side, and everything that Casey described as well. I've been in the social space for probably like 9-ish years, 8 or 9 years professionally, and then I was trying to think how long I've been at SOCi. I think it's like 4.5 years. Because what are you, Casey?
I'm 5 and a half. So
Okay,
you,
so
yeah, I
yeah,
was like 1 year in.
yeah,
Yeah,
4.5 years. So you have a veteran crew here on the call as far as working in tech and marketing goes.
totally. So, if you want to jump to the next slide, for those of you who haven't, this is your first time, you can find all of the prior SEO juices. We have a link for existing customers through our EDU system, and for non-customers, you can still see all of our past recordings and the what's what. So, definitely check both of those out. And then today we have a jam-packed schedule. We're going to quick hit on some industry news. We're going to do a look back on 2025. We have a lot to talk about, what to expect in 2026. These are our top predictions. Some quick kind of optimization updates, and then some interesting caught in the wild. And then stay tuned after caught in the wild because we have some really exciting upcoming announcements and things that we want to share with you all.
Cool. Let's jump right into the industry news, get things moving. Um, so earlier this year, Google let us know, and actually I think it was a meeting you were in, case I think I was out that week, where Google let us know they were sunsetting the Q&A feature, and there's been a lot of news about that this year. And at the time, I know Casey, you kind of grilled our contact a little bit about like what's replacing that. And they
Mhm.
hinted that the future of answers was not just in customer reviews, but the responses to those reviews. And I know you were a little like taken aback by that, like really. And I know we had a bunch of internal conversations around if that's announced, you think there'd be a lot of issue with spamming reviews. So I think it's no surprise that Google at the end of the year, they added to their help page that they confirm that they are now reviewing review responses to ensure that they are in compliance with Google's content guidelines. So what they say specifically around this is that if your reply isn't approved to be posted, you'll be asked to edit it. Replies usually take 10 to 30 minutes or 10 minutes to review, but sometimes could take up to 30 days. Um, the takeaway here really for local businesses that review responses could take longer in 2026 to post. So you may post something and you may go, hey, how come that hasn't gone up yet? It could be stuck in moderation. So to ensure that your responses are posted quickly and without any issue, just make sure you're responding promptly. The quicker you respond, the less time, like if there's lag, you're going to shorten that time. Make sure you're responding professionally. Avoid content policy violations such as keyword stuffing, promotion, spammy language, irrelevant information. Just be natural, right? Call out if there are mistakes because if it is being used as Q&A, you do want to make sure that if someone's leaving a response that it's correct. And one thing that we did get a question on, how will customers know if they're in moderation and they need to edit? We are looking to see if this is going to be pushed via API or some other way. We will definitely let you know when we have more information on that.
I was just about to say, I feel like our next Google meeting, which is I think tomorrow,
It is.
we should grill them a little bit
Mhm.
in understanding because 30 days is absolutely insane.
Mhm.
And I want to know what qualifies. Like, are there recommendations around what it should look like? Are there guidelines around what it should look like? How can we
Mhm.
encourage customers to follow those properly? If they are under review, is there a review status signal that's going to get sent to us? I got tons of questions for them. So we will ask all of those questions and more to the Google team tomorrow and hopefully get some clear answers.
Yeah, and that's fair, Karen. I like that. Is they're going to then review reviews to make sure that the people are using real names to post initially, and I totally get the contradiction there. It's totally fair.
Well, I was going to say they are doing that actually to some degree. I think they've done a pretty good job at cracking down on reviews that they feel are inauthentic or not, kind of relevant to the business or people who are spamming or like trying to damage businesses, right? Like I know in 2025 we saw a lot of reviews get taken down that seemed spammy in nature. So I don't know. Anyways, we got a lot of news, so we should move on.
Sounds good.
So everyone's probably sick of hearing me talk about hashtags at this point because I think it's honestly every single month there's a new update. But at this point, they are. It sounds like they're not testing the three hashtag um, limitation anymore, and they are just moving forward with five hashtag limitation. So in December, Adam Mosseri sent a message out that I have screenshotted here, where he said that they're capping hashtags at five per post. So we don't know if this means it's your post is going to, not publish, or what exactly is going to happen if you go beyond five. I'm going to guess it'll just cut off the caption, and you just won't see beyond the five hashtags. They're doing this because they really want people to peel back hashtag usage. So I would recommend you definitely do so or just remove it entirely.
All right. And then this one was an interesting uncover. So, more confirmation that service areas are not a local ranking factor. We have been saying this to our customers for a long time. You can add your service areas to your listings, but they are not necessarily going to impact crawlers or, kind of finding your business. And there's some documentation that was discovered on Claudia Tominia. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But she posted this Google documentation that essentially showed this warning, and it said this proto is not meant to be used directly. The translation of what that directive is this is backend storage, not internal geo consistency for the actual ranking model. So if you really want to extend, if you're a service area business and you really want to extend your visibility, the key way to do that is just building your authority in those markets, which is continuing to collect reviews, build a local social presence, please. Get mentions and like citations in some of those areas, get a lot of people talking about you in those different regions, and post about the different locations that you've been to. So we always say, be the best answer across your desired service area. Flooding your listings with your service areas aren't necessarily what's going to do it for you.
One thing I didn't make news this week, I just thought it was a good note to this, is I've seen some things recently that if you're a service area business and you're getting re-verification issues, make sure that your service areas don't overlap. There's a Google guideline about not sharing service areas. Google could then see those locations as being duplicative because they serve the same area, and that could be causing verification issues. So just wanted to make that note there in case you're having any problems. Moving on.
Yeah, so we talked about something very similar on the TikTok side in November. So now Instagram is allowing you to see the traffic source of how people ended up on your Instagram post. So the big one that we think is interesting is you can see how many people searched and within the app and ended up on your post. So this isn't something that you can see through a third party yet, since it's brand new on the Instagram side. So you have to see this natively, but it is a good indication that Instagram is more interested in understanding how people are ending up on your posts, especially when it comes to search. So just to be clear, this does not mean people were searching in Google and ended up on your Instagram post. It means they were searching from within Instagram, and that's how they ended up on your post.
All right. So I talked about this last time, I think maybe, or maybe I think it actually happened just after our last SEO juice, but there was an algorithm update in December. These algorithm updates, these core updates, they don't usually affect local. Typically, these core updates are typically based on pages, and local pages are typically considered at least medium helpful according to the EEAT standard guidelines. So if you have, well optimized pages, you shouldn't see any issue. But for those who maybe have issues on their pages, you should just keep an eye on your performance and make sure that you don't see any drop. That the update ended right on the 31st. So be sure to check out when you get all of January's metrics, look at it, see where you're at. So that's it on that one.
Yeah, I think this is the last one we have here. So TikTok is actually considered a top social news app for Gen Z. So you can see on the right, it shows the share of 18 to 29-year-olds who regularly consume news through different social media platforms. And TikTok has been high for the last few years, but as of 2025, it actually is the highest. It surpassed Facebook, YouTube, etc. So while I know a lot of us don't necessarily focus on sharing news, I do think this was important to call out because it shows how many people in this generation are using TikTok more and more. So it's definitely a platform worth exploring, knowing how many people are there.
100%.
Cool. All right.
All right, now let's take a look back at 2025 so that we can jump ahead to what the heck is going on this year.
There was a lot this year, and I think we're going to start with Kelly on the social roundup for 2025.
Yeah, sounds good. So when we look back at 2025, there are a few major themes in social that we see that we're also continuing to see this year already. So we'll go over 2026 momentarily, but first wanted to review 2025. So in the last June session, we talked a lot about this concept of middle funnel or interest media. This is the idea of creative on social holding more weight than ever before. So a lot of marketers spend their time in that upper funnel with awareness, and then the bottom funnel would be more like conversion. But the magic actually happens in the middle where brands earn relevance and trust. And then this is built through storytelling and strong creative. In every session, we have a handful of algorithm updates to review. So it's clear that this will continue into 2026. So some bigger ones last year involved hashtags, as we just talked about a couple minutes ago, algorithm curation, the penalization of links and captions, and then that increased focus on hyperlocal content. And then lastly, our team here feels very strongly about social search and the importance of optimizing your social strategy for search. And this is exactly why we've evolved the SEO juice last year, I think around halfway through the year, to include both search and social together in one session. So this subject will continue to get a lot more and more attention in 2026.
Yeah. And thanks for kind of highlighting that. I think that idea that SEO, at least for us, has become search everywhere optimization. I've always been the opinion everyone thinks SEO is Google, and it is search engine. It's not search Google optimization. And so whether your search engine is a traditional search engine, a social engine, a LLM, it's all relevant, it's all important, it's all where people look, right? And so to that point, some of the trends this year when it comes to search, search was obviously further fractured by LLMs, with LLMs entering the local search game, obviously ChatGPT being the biggest of those. It kind of mid-year, they launched their local app so people could start searching that way. Immediately, Google responded with their AI features. AI overviews has been around a little longer, but like AI mode appeared. We have like answers that are powered by AI. There are a lot of features. There are a couple things in the Caught in the Wild that I'll show later, really new features that are very AI driven. And a lot of this led to performance issues, which Casey, this is your wheelhouse. I'm sure you have a lot to say about this.
I
Um,
sure do. Yeah, so 2025, we saw search impression serious decline industry wide. It's really that diversification. I'm going to talk a lot more about that as we get into like 26 predictions. But this all really started in 2025 and it's not going to slow down into this new year. And then this other performance issue one too, to kind of speak to is something for everybody to keep in mind this year. There was a pretty big bug in Google reporting that caused Google Business Profile search impressions and keywords to be severely undercounted in June and July. So when we get around to Q2, Q3, June and July of this year, and suddenly your performance looks fantastic, I'm happy for you. But compared to last year, it could just be because of that bug with data missing.
One of the things I've been doing when I've been looking at customers like month to month is drawing that line from May to August, kind of a little bit of a straight line because it just goes down almost every time when you look at search impressions specifically.
And if anybody's looking for a little more like data-driven way to kind of actualize out their data, typically what I do is I look at what was my year-over-year comp trend for those first couple months in the year. So if on average I'm 5% higher than I was in the previous year, I look at what my metrics were in the previous year for June and July or whatever time frame is missing, and then add that 5% just to keep the same trend going.
And I will say, I just kind of one of the things I've seen in 2025 around that decline, although we've seen the decline overall industry wide, I will say I haven't seen as big of a decline when it comes to actual actions. And I know you'll talk about this in a minute, Casey, about kind of looking at attribution and looking at what it measures success. But I will say here, when you're looking back at 2025, don't put all your eggs in like, well, my performance needs to be up, and if it's not, then it's a disaster. Like, understand what your success metrics are. And again, I'm getting ahead because I know Casey will talk about this more, but I think that's a big theme for looking backwards as well. And then lastly, ranking factors. Obviously, Google embraced social in a lot of ways. They brought it into right next to Google Posts in some of those carousels. They're highlighting it in different ways. And we found with our study with Google directly that it actually affects rank. It affects visibility. It affects actions. So I think that's going to continue into the new year. And then Google indicating that responding to reviews as a ranking factor, I think, is really big. And it'll goes into freshness, which we'll talk about in a minute. Um, so moving on, looking forward, I think this is the fun conversation. The prognosticating, what do we think is going to happen this year?
Absolutely.
So um,
You can kick us.
looking at search, looking at what's driving change in search, as we know, it's being fundamentally reshaped by AI-driven discovery, a shift towards hyper-local precision, where LLMs serve as the front door for users. We talked about in the last SEO Juice this idea of understanding how people are using LLMs in discovery that leads to an LLM recommending a business like yours. This is a really great example here. Restaurants that can accommodate large groups with picky eaters. I think I even used kind of an example where Google was saying this is the kind of thing that would lead them to recommend a lot of these types of restaurants. And you can see right there, it recommends Cheesecake Factory, American Bistros. It gives you a whole bunch of types of restaurants based on what it knows maybe about a brand, but what it knows about local businesses. So these search engines transition from like simple keyword matching to sophisticated systems, right? And so again, we're going to talk a little bit about this. The evolution is going to be, we're going to see a surge in zero-click searches as AI overviews and conversation assistants provide immediate answers. And immediate is the point, right? They want immediacy. They want things from now. Consequently, businesses must optimize for highly granular neighborhood level relevance, maintain real-time activity signals, such as weekly photo updates, rapid review responses to remain visible, increasingly dynamic and personalized search layouts. So how does that translate into actual predictions? So let's start. We have 5 search predictions and we have 5 social predictions. We didn't want to overwhelm you, but we wanted to hit the high level things. So we're going to start with, I think, the biggest concern that's going to drive this year for all of you, which is performance. So
Yeah. So prediction number one is a big one, and it's not even necessarily a prediction. It's literally already happening, which is kind of what we talked about with 25. So local search is going to continue to fracture. And what we mean by fracturing is people aren't just using Google as a one-stop shop. It is an entire ecosystem now that crosses between LLMs, traditional SEO, social media platforms, even some like forums, review platforms, things like that. It is really becoming this um, all customer journey. It's not just kind of one avenue for one thing. We have seen that in last year's consumer business or consumer behavior index study. That's where this chart is from. I would imagine these numbers are much higher. We will be running this study again in 2026 to get some updated numbers. But at the time of this survey, which was almost a year ago, 20% of users used ChatGPT to look up a local business. And we've only seen adoption on ChatGPT like quadruple over itself in 25. I don't think that's going to slow down in 26. This is going to be something we continue to see. So what does that mean for you? Well, your traditional KPIs like impressions, clicks, site traffic, sessions, they're going to continue to decline in 2026. It does not mean that your efforts are failing. It means that that KPI is not representative any longer of your total encompassing efforts. In fact, we looked at Q4 metrics for this past quarter compared to Q4 in the prior year, so 25 compared to 24. And we saw across local landing pages, web clicks down 11%, regardless of industry, and impressions down 5%, regardless of industry. I would like to say that, oh, 2025 was down and now maybe you'll have a better year. I don't think that these KPIs are bouncing back. I think it's time for us to rethink these channels. SEO is no longer, in my opinion, a performance marketing channel. And there are so many organizations that classified SEO as such and treated it like some of its paid channels. And it's just not that, especially now. So your efforts in search are very similar to your efforts in social media now. It's way more about brand marketing, brand awareness, and we need to shift away from some of the traditional, revenue mapping activities that, quite frankly, those attribution models were always a challenge. In fact, I think I get into that on the next slide. So again, the reality is those attribution models have always been broken. For years we have operated on this system of, let's do whether you're doing like first click, last click attribution, whatever, and you're tracking through to point of sale and you're getting your online sales and you've always missed your in-store sales. It's always been a correlation story with your in-store. It's always been nearly impossible to map your success in Google business listings. Yet we've been evaluating the success of Google business listings on website clicks. But why were we doing that in the first place for the past 10 years if the reality is that the reason for your Google business listing is for people to go into your location? So it's always been a bit of a challenge. You've never really had the full picture of the success of these listings or even your local pages. But now, even more so in 2026, it's going to be way less about that actual traffic now that we're kind of in this world of, multi fractured engagement and zero click. So how do you think about your success? If you were at Reimagine, this might sound a little bit repetitive to you. This is borrowed from my talk track there, but I really think correlations and performance will become way more important. I think SEO is going to become way more of like a testing and learning medium of, we put our efforts behind this in 1 month, and did we see associated results in other areas of the business? And it might even be actions that you took in social media. Did you see traffic pickup? Or actions that you took in search? Did you see social media behavior pickup? Actions that you took in either of those places. What do your in-store foot traffics look like? What do your bookings look like? It's going to be harder and harder to firmly track that attribution. So it is going to be a lot more obscure and a lot more about what can we, in an educated way, try and correlate between. So did call volume rise after we launched a new local campaign? Did store visits increase? Did bookings climb when we posted more video content to TikTok? Now, you can't formally say it was because you did this on TikTok. And unfortunately, I don't think there's a world where we've ever been able to do that, or really will ever be able to do that, because let's be honest, cookie tracking is not really a thing. Apple doesn't let you do it, right? And I realize I'm getting on my soapbox here, and I think I could talk about this for an entire webinar in and of itself, and I'm happy to do that in the future. But all of this being said, you're not failing at your job. It just got harder to prove it. And it's already kind of always been hard to prove it. So 26 is all about trying to stay calm, communicate to your upper management that this is happening. This is inevitable, but it doesn't mean that SEO doesn't deserve investment. It doesn't mean that social media doesn't deserve investment. In fact, it's more important now than ever to invest in these channels if we want to be visible in this answer engine world. Um, and with that, I'm gonna turn it over to the next prediction.
Nice. We talked about, you said earlier about how ChatGPT is growing, but the prediction here, number two, is Google will probably overtake GPT and local LLM search. While ChatGPT was obviously the clear winner in 2025, Google has embedded Gemini across search, Android, and now news that came out yesterday, it's Apple's AI ecosystem is making it a default experience. So I don't know if anyone has seen, there's two things that have come out in the last week. One, this first chart from SimilarWeb shows kind of share of AI traffic, and you can see OpenAI kind of decreasing while Gemini is increasing over the last 12 months. But this post from Google yesterday, kind of, I feel, I think someone even said we have a channel where we share news internally between our team here. And I think might have been Carol, someone said is this the nail in the coffin, right? Like, is this now that Apple is involved? Obviously, we don't have a lot of information on Apple's share when it comes to maps and other things because it's in an app. But we know Apple's a huge share. It's on phones. People use it, right? And so now that they are using Google's data, obviously everyone's been using Google's data. We've had news that AI, Perplexity, all of them are trying to scrape Google data because they have the infrastructure there. They have the years of experience. They have all this data behind it. It makes sense, right? So I think we're going to just see a clear decline there. One of the things I really hope is that Google will finally start releasing performance metrics that will help customers and businesses understand where all traffic is going within their own ecosystem, right? Is it going to AI mode? Is it going to AIOs? Is it going to all these other new features that they're releasing? That we will have to wait and see. I know they've talked about new metrics coming and some of it within Search Console that we haven't seen yet. So stay tuned there. I think what you're doing, and I think it also lends to the idea that traditional search, not that traditional search is changing. I'm not going to, sorry, kind of lost my own thread there for a minute. That being the best answer, like really doing things that affect everybody is what you want to do. You want to, I kind of lost the case. I don't know what I did there.
You're fine. You're fine. But no, I listen, I think a lot of people get this point. I think it's funny too. We actually had somebody ask this question about Google overtaking an LLM search, and it was like the next slide that you talked about. But
yeah, and I'm sorry too, because I had someone outside like delivering things, so it kind of threw me off here and lost my
you're
thread.
good.
So
You're
I
good.
appreciate that. So again, I think this also goes into the next prediction, I think, which is
Mhm.
freshness is the new relevance. There's been a lot of studies that have shown that LLMs do have a recency bias. I think Google's had that for a while. We saw when we talked about the ranking factor study in November, right around the time that the ranking factor survey came out, there was a bunch of other little studies that came out that showed that it wasn't just reviews that were kind of the number one authority factor, but also the recency of reviews. The idea that it's not just that you have a lot of reviews, not that just you're highly rated, but that you have a lot of consistent reviews coming in. And the more recent your reviews and the larger that number of recent reviews come in, that businesses were getting a boost there. So one of the things that you definitely want to keep in mind, especially as we see that 60% of cited pages with known publication dates were published within the last 2 years. 76% of pages with detectable update data have been refreshed within the past 30 days, and 90% of all pages with freshness data carried 2025 update timestamps. It makes sense. People want, as you said earlier, Casey, this answer engine that the internet is becoming. People want current answers. They want answers that are fresh. They want to know what's going on now, not what happened 2 years ago. And so if you're not at minimum answering reviews, that's a signal telling Google that you're active and that you're talking to your customers, right? It makes sense that they're reviewing. It makes sense that they're looking at those. But then look at your local pages. When's the last time you updated your local page? Are you doing it seasonally? Are you, yeah.
Yeah, I am a huge advocate for update those title tags seasonally. I don't
Mhm.
care if you're just mentioning Mother's Day. I don't like it's there are so many just freshness signals that get sent to Google and to LLMs that you're paying attention. And that's really like what it is. Like just make some changes. It's okay. You don't like we test title tags and things like that all the time on local landing pages, but like you also don't even really need to test. Like just update. It's okay. It doesn't need to be that scary, especially because of how fast LLMs and algorithms are crawling things now. I think I remember the age of SEO where I used to say to upper management, like, oh, well, we made this change and in 3 to 6 months, we'll know how it does. And while it's true, maybe there are some things that still might take that long to measure. I don't think that's going to be as common in 2026. I think LLMs and Google favoring that recency, I think is going to go across the board. So the
Mhm.
more fresh you can be with your content and updates, the better.
Yeah, one customer, one business I love to point to is doing a really good job of updating their pages. I know, and I know you have a bias there, Casey. I know Dick's Sporting Goods does a great job of updating things, but Trader Joe's, they have a blog incorporated into their page. So every month they're getting new content on their local pages, and they have little recipes on the bottom that are seasonally appropriate. I think they're a really great example of a business that does a great job of keeping their page updated constantly. So think about ways that you can do that. If you have a blog already, figure out a way to plug that into your local pages, right? And again, try to keep things seasonal and up to date as possible. Prediction number 4, more verification issues and more reviews removed. I know you probably have all dealt with the frustrations this year of having locations that have had to go and get re-verified when you've made updates, or reviews that have been removed. Maybe you thought it was justified, but maybe you thought they weren't justified. I think with Google will continue to use AI systems to uncover Google profile violations, content violations that may have always been present but haven't been flagged. So if you have a geo modifier and then you go and update something on your account, that may cause Google to relook at your whole account, right, or your whole listing and go, well, okay, you're fine to make that update, but we found something else wrong, right? And now you've been thrown into a re-verification status. So make sure avoid using those geo modifiers. And if you are and you run into re-verification issues, know that that could be the reason why. Make sure your service areas do not overlap. I talked about that earlier. Be sure category changes and additions to categories are validated by images in your local pages. So if you're adding a category, let's say, you're a restaurant, a burger restaurant, and you're adding pizzas that you're going to sell, make sure that that's validated somewhere, right? That you're doing that now. Um, don't trade goods and services for reviews. There's actually, I don't think we reported on this yet. There's just so much news lately. Over the holidays, I saw something where for some reviews now, Google is asking, were you offered anything in return for your review? So there's a way to kind of highlight that and call those things out, and then be sure that reviews are not left while customers are using your Wi-Fi. I found this issue we have a lot of customers that maybe, like, let's say a swim school, right? If you're dropping your kid off and you're waiting for your kid and you leave a review, if you're on the Wi-Fi, Google may say, well, the call is coming from inside the house, so this might not be valid. So that's another thing and another reason that reviews might get flagged and removed. So it's frustrating, right? Google is trying to get rid of the spam content out there on the web. Sometimes that can overreach and cause issues, but just make sure that you're doing all the right things to make sure you're not being affected by that. And lastly, the SEO community will continue to argue about what acronym to use. Really, it doesn't really matter what you call it. Do you call it SEO, GEO, AIO, LLMO? I think there's a whole bunch of different things. My opinion on this a little bit is if you're an SEO agency or you do those things, you're selling a service, right? And I kind of feel like a lot of news and content is that SEO is complicated and we can do that for you. I don't think SEO is complicated, but it's hard. It is difficult. You have to keep at it. And especially in a world of freshness, you have to keep at it. You have to keep answering things. You have to keep updating. You have to make sure that you are interacting with your customers. And that's hard, right? We don't have unlimited time. It's one of the reasons, shameless self-promotion, that we launched agents, right? We know you can't do this all the time. So really, it's about being relevant. It's about being prominent. It's about being the best answer. And things like freshness are part of relevance now, right? And prominence. So it'll be a tough year as this rolls out. We're going to be here every month giving you tips on how to be the best answer, how to be relevant, how to be prominent. So we appreciate you being here and coming back, and we look forward to bringing these things to you over the course of the year. So, anything you want to add to these tips, Casey, before we move on to social?
I think you summed it up well. Let's
Oh,
jump to Kelly.
all right, Kelly, take it away.
All right. So now that we talked about some of the major themes in 2025 on the search and the social side, I wanted to also review the predictions for 2026 for social specifically. So, as we know, the digital landscape is always changing again across social and search. And we understand that brands are facing unprecedented challenges this year, but that also comes with a lot of opportunity. So instead of being worried or scared about it, I think we should look at it as exciting. There's a lot of really great things happening in the space right now. The key themes and predictions are AI automation meeting human authenticity, social platforms being used as primary search engines, video first content strategies, community driven marketing approaches, and then multi platform brand presence. So, starting with our first prediction here, AI, you can't have a conversation regarding marketing in 2026 without mentioning the idea of automation. So, whether you love it or you hate it, AI is here to stay. However, authenticity is now more important than ever, and human oversight really does remain critical. So, the big opportunity here is making sure that you are one of the top marketers this year, which means you should utilize a social strategy with a workflow and a final output that does have AI intervention. So it's important to find the right tool, the right partner, whatever it might be for scheduling, creative development, and performance forecasting, but also still maintaining that brand voice and authenticity. That's really the main goal there. And we think that those who master that this year will be in a really good spot.
I was actually just anecdotally, I was on a meeting with a customer, and one of their VPs of e-commerce brought it up to me where he was like, I know it's inevitable. I know that social content, SEO content, like the web is going to become AI driven. And so what they're thinking about is a very large, popular brand, right? He's like, I'm thinking about how do we use it, and to Kelly's point, and maintain that authenticity because everybody else is going to be using it to try and maximize their workforce. It's just about finding tools that allow us to still remain as authentic as possible, so that you don't publish slop, because there's a lot of slop out there, right? But I think, I mean, we're seeing AI make vast improvements. I mean, we're biased. We have a really great AI social agent that's rolling out. I don't believe it's producing slop, but it's inevitable. So we shouldn't be avoiding having it in our workflows.
And like we always say too, I know fear is AI, replacing certain roles or seats or whatever, and we don't feel that should be a fear. We feel like it should be a motivator to just use these tools efficiently and the best to your ability. So that's really prediction one, I'd say, for this year. Okay, and then prediction two, no surprise here. So, like we've been talking about for a while, social search is really competing with traditional engines. So, social platforms are becoming the primary discovery channels, especially for younger demographics seeking product recommendations and answers. So, these stats are even a little bit outdated. They were taken last year, so I'm excited to see how they changed this year. So 55% of Gen Z reports discovering new products on social. We are putting out a new survey this year where we hope to get some more data on not just Gen Z, but all age groups and how their social usage has changed when it comes to search. So that'll be sometime later this year. We'll have our own updated SOCi stat on that piece. And then a stat directly from TikTok shares that 86% of Gen Z searches directly from within TikTok instead of using a traditional search engine. So 86% is really high. That's the highest I've ever heard. And again, this comes from TikTok themselves. So I like to think that it's probably pretty accurate, or else they wouldn't say it.
Yeah.
Um,
One thing just on that note, Kelly, that I want to say to the group here, how we were talking about how hard it is to attribute how people got to your business or made those purchases. I do think that post-sale surveys are going to become crucial from a KPI perspective. Like genuinely just ask your customers where they found you and maybe even allow them to multi-select. Since their journey really is multi-selection. They probably didn't only find you on TikTok. Right, like they're following you multiple places, they're seeing you multiple places that caused them to wind up making a purchase with you, whether it's online or in person. And I think those post-sale attribution surveys are going to be critical to measuring this in the new year.
I think that multi-selection thing that you said is really important. There's so many surveys out there still that just have one selection. And to your point, if people are searching everywhere to get to their journey and trying a lot of different places, you need to know that, right? Otherwise, you're just going to focus on the one and not think, well, that one's low, but is it?
Right.
So
And the other great thing about this generation is that they are not brand loyal, really, in the sense that once they discover something, they are willing to try it. So it is actually a really good insight to, use that form or that survey to see how they got there, because you might be finding a new customer who would have never otherwise, found you, and they might actually use you again or whatever it might be. So there is a lot of opportunity for Gen Z. And Gen Z is getting older. I mean, I know for a while it was kind of the joke, like Gen Z teenagers, but I think a lot of them are in their late 20s now. So
I
I
was
do
going to
think,
say, I think the youngest millennial turns 30 this year, something like that. So, yeah, Gen Z is right there.
yeah, so I mean, they're buying houses, they're getting married, they're having kids, they're doing everything. So I don't think they're, any longer a generation that we kind of dismiss as middle schoolers. I think they're very much consumers now. And then the next slide here, just hand in hand with what Casey just said too, is that it's really important that you look, you expand your metrics and you include new KPIs. So that's exactly the example of in your survey, multi-select, trying to understand and really demonstrate that ROI. It's the age-old question, like how do we actually prove this? And I think marketers who can prove it are going to be in a really great spot this year. And going to the leveraging new tools part of the slide here, Google Search Console, TikTok, Instagram, like we've been talking about, they recently rolled out enhanced search metrics, and we anticipate those will evolve over the next few months as well. So beyond being creative with your own KPIs and metrics, and then using the tools that these platforms are giving us, we're hoping that it becomes a little bit easier to demonstrate and prove that ROI. So next is video content dominating all platforms. So this isn't a very new or hot take, but there are still many brands out there that are not shooting for social and are not prioritizing videos. So this is important to do because Reels on both Facebook and Instagram reach non-followers at scale. So if you post a video, also known as a Reel on Facebook or Instagram, those algorithms will show your reel to people who don't follow you, opposed to if you post just a standard image, it probably won't show up in that explore page, and it also won't show up in people's reels tab as well. So it's not necessarily that these platforms are like prioritizing the reels, it's just the way that they work, the UI works is that they have their own designated spot. So it definitely is the best bang for your buck to actually shoot for social, post videos, that's going to help you reach the most non-followers. Prediction 4 is that community and creator partnerships will pick up a notch. So influencer investment is rising as brands see the value that micro influencers bring specifically. So just other, a reminder here, or anyone who didn't know, a macro influencer would be somebody who has hundreds of thousands of followers and they appeal to people across the entire country, whereas a micro influencer might be somebody who only has 5,000 followers, but they're in your community and they do have a following within your community, so they might not be super expensive, but you are reaching a niche audience in that, having that community trust. So in fact, 69% of consumers trust influencer recommendations when making purchasing decisions. And outside of influencers, brands are also choosing to implement strategies with user generated content, so content that their customers are posting. And then even employee advocacy programs are growing a lot as well. So we work with the Human Bean, which is coffee and a coffee brand. It is regional to only certain areas of the United States, and they have their baristas post on their behalf, and they get a lot of really great content from that employee advocacy program. So there's a lot of different ways that you could be creative and actually get that hyper local content. And we always see that hyper local content perform well because those narratives, like employee stories, customer testimonials, behind the scenes content, always really resonates with audiences. Okay, so then the last prediction we have here is platform fragmentation. So the average user accesses 6 to 7 different social platforms monthly, and that number is growing. Again, that one's even a little outdated since it's from last year as well. But because your audience is everywhere, you need to be everywhere as well. I'm not suggesting that you try to create a whole strategy for Threads or YouTube or places where you've never been before, but we do suggest that at a minimum you secure handles on all those relevant platforms with complete profiles. So you should have a photo, a website URL. You should at least have a profile created everywhere, because this protects brand identity and it also enables quick activation when opportunities do arise.
Thank you. I know this is the last one. Is there any thoughts or things that we want to add, I guess, before we close out on the social side?
None on my end. I'm currently just discussing all of this in the chat with the crew here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what did I
Do
miss
you want
here?
to
I
share
see
any of that? I
a
guess.
bunch of messages.
No, just folks talking about the challenges associated with getting some of this messaging out to senior leadership. I made a cheeky joke saying invite them to the SEO juice, but obviously these long format things aren't ideal for like CMOs, right? Or like SVPs who quite frankly don't have time for us. But we do send all of these materials out after the call. So hopefully that can help, kind of empower those conversations. Also, if you are a SOCi customer, reach out to your CSM, and then your CSM works directly with us. So we can kind of help connect the dots there, maybe help build a personalized story so that it makes it a lot easier for you to have these conversations with your senior leadership.
And if you are a SOCi customer, you should have a lot of this data in the platform to be able to prove that, hey, we posted a video, we reached 5,000 people in a matter of 30 seconds. Whereas if you're calling, I don't think you can call in 30 seconds and reach 5,000 people or whatever it might be. So I think definitely use data as well.
Yep.
Oh. So to wrap things up, because I know we only have about 10 minutes left, when it comes to checkbox optimization, there aren't any real new GBP categories or big attribute announcements that I had. But Kelly has some news about some new features within platform that we want to highlight. So that's the
Yeah, so if you are a SOCi customer, you may have heard a few weeks ago that we released an enhancement so that you can post videos and images in the same carousel to your social handles. So especially on the Instagram side, carousels are a very strategic content placement because the same user is shown one carousel multiple times, so that Instagram is making sure that one person sees every frame of that carousel. So by using both videos and images, you can tell a more dynamic story with stronger creative. So if you haven't taken a look at this one yet, I would highly recommend doing so.
Thanks, Kelly.
Mhm.
Real quick on the caught in the wild, I always love doing this because sometimes we just run out of time to kind of go into depth on some of these things that I found out there. One thing that I've seen lately is Google has kind of moved in just traditional search. Dynamic business overviews are appearing in direct search results on mobile now. So if you notice here, this I did a direct search for an apartment building, so property, and Google is adding this little description with some key features and amenities, the buildings that are part of that community, and even highlighting where it's gotten its information from. Now, what's really interesting about this is they are dynamic. I went back and did this a few times, and each time this changed a little bit. So basically, as you hit that, Google's, I'm guessing Gemini runs this, is looking at all the information it has about that building, about that property, and creating this dynamically and throwing out the things they think are most important. Now, when you have a really good page, Google is pulling most of the content from the page. They're also pulling it from other places, social, reviews. I think I even saw in this instance, there was an article from the paper. So Google is grabbing these things from a lot of different places. So, again, it's not showing up necessarily all the time. So I'll probably be talking more about this as I look more into it. I've been doing some research, but we obviously wanted to cover what's going on this year. Another feature that's appearing, and sometimes these features are appearing at the same time, but sometimes you'll get these extra little actual like features within there, amenities, membership information. I've seen services, events. And again, Google is pulling this from here. It says it's coming from the website. It might be coming from other listing sources. So more to come on this, but you can see Google is trying to inject more and more information using their own LLM, using their own sources and other sources around the web. And then lastly, just really fun. Last night I was doing something and it accidentally broke AI overviews, which was really funny. You can see I got some of their placeholders, where you can see notes, and then in this sentence that contains a potential follow-up query. It did it here too, according to this and this. Just more of an interesting thing. But one thing I also noticed because I was paying a little more attention to the feedback is this piece about Google where it says amenities. These two links went to a YouTube video. So basically, Google is getting information not from a website, not from what people are saying everywhere, but from a visual YouTube video that showed the amenity that had a walkthrough of the place. So I know we were talking beforehand that we owe you all a really good look at YouTube and what some of these things might do. I feel like if this is happening from an amenities and standpoint, we may get to a future where every one of you, for every one of your businesses, you may want to have a video walkthrough of the location that shows everything that's going on in there that's posted that Google then crawls and LLMs can then understand as your amenities, your services, the things that are going on there. So stay tuned for that. I think there's something interesting in here that we need to talk about and that we will talk about. So with our last 5 minutes, we have a lot of really cool coming soon things. So I'll give Casey this first one.
Yes, so this next one we are so excited about. Stay tuned. January 28th, we are officially launching our 2026 Local Visibility Index. If you aren't familiar with the LVI, it has been something we've been doing for years here at SOCi, but this year is new and improved. This year, we are factoring in some AI visibility benchmarking. It's a really great report that allows you to understand kind of how these different businesses, how your business stacks up against the competition. We have a really great scoring system that kind of takes a lot of different factors into consideration that can really help you understand just how visible you are in search, social, how you're performing in reputation, and what you look like in AI search. So stay tuned. A lot happening with the LVI in the next few months. We even have some like top 100 winners that we'll be announcing, those brands that are just performing so well. There will be LVI webinars upcoming as well that we'll talk about. So definitely stay tuned. Just really exciting time for Team SOCi here with this study getting published.
What I'm really excited about on this, if you've been following and attending our webinars, you know, Damian Rollison, who heads up our market insights. He highlighted introduced some of this, and I think I'm really excited about that AI piece, right? The AI visibility portion that's been added here. So, yeah, excited to see what's coming.
Totally.
Um, One other thing, two other things actually. Launching later today. We've, I think, been teasing this for 2 months now. SOCi Central. What's really great about this, and actually, oh geez,
Oh,
they added some transitions to this, is that it is a great place to, you can learn a lot because all of our, if you're new to SOCi, there's a lot of like information about places you can learn things, best tips, practices, stuff like that. If you've been with SOCi for a while and you're experienced and seasoned, there's also the ability to share knowledge to, it's really a community that we're building. It is going to be available later today, and the link to this channel is going to come when we send out the link to this webinar. So stay tuned, join. Myself and Kelly and team have already been putting articles in there, information. So once you get in there, it won't be empty. There will be stuff there, and we will be sending updates through there all the time. That's the place to get the news in between these SEO juice sessions.
Mike, I forget if you said this or not, but this is only for SOCi customers. So
It
apologies
is
if you
only for
didn't.
SOCi customers, yes. So this is an internal resource. Thank you for calling that out. So, and lastly,
lastly, I have a webinar next week. So super excited to host AI Search in 2026, 3 ways to show up and stand out. This is some really great AI data published by our very own Damian Rollison that I will be chatting about, presenting. Super excited for this one. So please, if you have not already registered, it'll be me. Super excited to chat through it and present to you all. I hope to see you all there.
thank you all.
All
As
right.
always,
Yeah.
we love having you.